Well, guys, we are back for another episode of the Liberal Asshole Show, episode 132. A little bit late since I had to deal with the world files the last few days, but now we're back. So, what are today's topics?
Iran-Israel war over for now. Kulinski and Cenk Uygur explode in heated debate. How much progress have we made on climate change? How evil is the meat industry? Terrible Build Back Better bill passes. Young men are abandoning Trump. Conservatives and corporate Dems rage over New York City elections.
Oh boy, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So, what do we start off with first?
Let's start with the temporary end of the Israel-Iran war and the temporary end to escalation towards World War III.
So, of course, as we last covered, the Iran-Israel war happened, and there actually was a big change that happened like 2 days after we did the last episode, where America actually did bomb Iran. They bombed a couple of their nuclear facilities while I was on vacation such. And there's conflicting reports on like what happened. First off, America used like 14 bunker buster bombs, which was like overkill from what I've seen, and Tomahawk missiles from naval strikes and such. And from what I've heard, it ranges from, let's see, like the Pentagon, American intelligence, Iran say like different things, like the Pentagon acts like they've like completely destroyed Iran's nuclear facilities and keep them from having like a potential nuclear weapon for years. The intelligence community acts like not really, didn't really do anything. Iran, of course, acts, says ain't nothing happened, all that. So we don't know what happened. We're probably gonna not know for a while and such. But after
it seems like one nuclear facility was heavily damaged, but that was one that hadn't really been used, and the other two only sustained minor damage. They're like possibly delayed. They'd be like delayed by maybe 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, that was like
that's it.
Yeah, that was like the low estimate I heard too. Like it's conflicting on it. So who knows? But thankfully, as the moment. Oh yeah. Iran tried to attack American bases in Qatar, I think it was, and they failed spectacularly.
You know, that was a symbolic thing as a propaganda for the local population.
Because we know that they will not, like we said last time, you're not going to win against America and Israel, and all you're going to do is if you attack countries in the Middle East, you're just going to get everyone against you. So, like, don't do anything stupid. But right now, nothing has happened since, pretty much, and now there's a ceasefire, and I think it's been been ongoing for at least a week now. So hopefully it holds and all that. Not much casualties other than Iran was shown to be weak, as we all knew, and of course all the people on the left, including Kyle, act like Iran is like unstoppable now all of a sudden, which is really annoying if you've seen that. Oh,
no.
God. Pretty sad and pathetic.
Look, Iran and Saudi Arabia are basically in the varying stages of falling apart.
Yeah, like they're not powerful whatsoever. So stop acting like they're this giant threat. Oh my God, they acted like Israel was getting destroyed by Iran. If you've seen that on leftist YouTubers over the last few weeks, which
I think it's on the I think the only way you could see that is because Israel's losing the PR war in regard our war generally. I think that's about the only way Israel's getting quote unquote destroyed.
They're not getting destroyed militarily, unlike Iran, who can't destroy America or Israel's planes. From what I heard too, when America sent the B-2 Spirit bombers in Iran, they face no like air resistance whatsoever, because they can't.
Of course not. They previously wiped out Iran's air force.
Yep.
To the point that I'm not even sure they have. That I think Iran even has problems getting commercial airlines out.
Yep.
Because I think the time before America even bombed their airports.
So yeah, overall, I'm glad it's over for right now. Nothing much changed. Still am against it going up again, and I'm against America's involvement, even with the bomb and all that, even though I do want to point out to people that a lot of the left also like overreacted at the same time, acting like war's about to happen, all that. Well, as of right now, it didn't, thankfully.
Thankfully, cooler heads prevailed. Because there was always that risk, because you know that Bibi Hitler Yahoo is doing everything he can to stay out of jail.
And stupid dipshit Trump as well.
Trying to start World War III, well, he'll try to start World War III if it keeps him out of jail.
Yep, I just wish a lot on the left would be like more like cooler, level-headed like I was during the bombing. Like I honestly didn't pay any attention whatsoever when it was ongoing. What about you?
I was like, I basically just looked at it. I looked at it. Okay, rolled my eyes, and then moved on to something more something more important for me locally.
Yep, I'm in the middle of like a mental wellness vacation at the moment, and I don't think it's gonna mean anything right now, so I just didn't care about it. Come back to me when they actually start invading Iran. That's when we have to actually take it like an actual serious threat and all that. But for right now, it seems what?
Or if Israel decides to try and bomb China.
But yeah, right now though, let's cool out, people, and not freak out any more than it already is. You need to have like a level head when covering this stuff like we tried to do last time out. So yeah, we gotta see about that though. For right now, the Iran-Israel war is over.
Well, that's good. Because it means... Unfortunately, it now also means that Hitler Yahoo can turn around and focus on wiping out the Palestinians.
Of course, as always.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
And we gotta say about
like I said, he'll do anything he can to stay out of jail. So.
And we gotta say, of course, about Trump bombing Iran's nuclear facilities.
No fucking surprise.
Stupid, but at least nothing else happened.
I'm surprised he didn't order them to go on to bomb China or something.
Alright, so I think we're good on this topic for right now. So now what the next topic is.
Kulinski and Cenk Uygur exploding in the heated debate about coddling up to MAGA.
Oh, did you actually finally saw the video? Oh,
yes,
boy.
I did.
Oh my goodness. That night before I had to go on my vacation, I watched the whole thing on Kyle's channel, and oh my goodness, it was insane. So for all of you who don't know, a few weeks ago, Kyle and Cenk and Crystal had a debate about what do we do about MAGA supporters and all that. It's a debate that we had months ago when we made fun of Cenk. And Kyle, like what I said before, like we and Kyle and Cenk flipped on this. Cenk is on the position that we need to try and be like as friendly as possible with MAGA, try and talk with them to try and convince them that what they think is wrong and Trump sucks and all that, try and get them on our side. Whereas Kyle and Crystal are in the camp of, no, these people are pieces of shit. They need to be made fun of and all that. They're not
redeemable.
They're not redeemable, so fuck them. Let's focus on people on the left instead. Now, and I'm sure you were too, we were on Cenk's position the first time Trump was in, and such. Yep. We wanted to try and talk to Trumpsters to try and get them to realize Trump sucks, stop supporting him and all that. And Kyle was also the same way. Kyle and Cenk flipped their positions. Yeah. Cenk, back in Trump's first term, he was the one to act like they're all Nazis, fuck him and all that. But after Trump won, all of us flipped. Now we're on the side of, no, fuck them, let's just make fun and all that. And Cenk was like, no, we need to be friends with them and such. So, a few weeks ago, they had a debate about this, and oh boy, they freaking exploded at each other. I'm surprised. It was insane and such. And finally found the actual video that Dave covered of actual Kyle exploding on Cenk, because Kyle's video was only Crystal talking to Cenk. So, let's go see this explosion.
By telling the truth.
Your brand is perfect, Kyle.
I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth, not coddling the nuts of MAGA voters. Yeah.
Cenk Uygur joined Kyle Kulinski and Crystal Ball for a calm and cool debate.
Calm and cool maybe by Cenk standards.
The topic of how to win in a moment of Trump and the insanity that is the administration. So in this video, I have a few fun clips from this debate to get to. I'm going to play them for you and try to establish here who is correct, as well as
obviously
the most
Kyle
amazing
Crystal.
clip later on. I gotta say, no spoilers, but you gotta stay for the best clip of the debate, in my opinion. First up, let's do Cenk's argument here. So, Crystal, as you see, will read it out, but this was Cenk post-election, pre-inauguration, and this is the argument that he was trying to make at the time.
So you said in November 29th, 2024, I've been trying to figure out why I'm more optimistic now than I was before the election. even though I was so against the guy who won, I know now MAGA is not my mortal enemy, neither is the extreme left. My
MAGA
mortal
is the
enemy
enemy.
is the establishment, and they have been defeated.
And MAGA is the
so
establishment.
over the course of that
Cenk.
conversation, you explained to me that the reason you felt optimistic was really two reasons. Number one, as you say there, the establishment was defeated. And number two, you felt that the elements of the populist right and the bros would hold Trump accountable.
So right-wing populists, it is now your job to prove Crystal wrong.
Go out and do it, y'all.
So she doesn't believe you. And by the way, almost no one on the left, other than me and Anna, believe you guys. That
And
you
you're
actually
idiots for
want to cut the
believing
Pentagon.
them.
And that you could pressure Elon Musk and Donald Trump to cut the Pentagon.
Oh,
are
wait,
you gonna
that
prove
didn't
the left
happen, Cenk. How
wrong,
about that?
Or are you going to prove them spectacularly
The
right?
budget's
Am I
now
going to have to
$1
come on
trillion.
here?
How about that one, Cenk?
Apologize to Crystal for ever believing in any right-wing populist.
So, is the apology coming up? We'll see in the next clip. But first, just a couple of things. That tweet from November after Trump won, Cenk claiming that the establishment was defeated. Yes, the
Cenk,
former
Trump
president
is
Donald
the
Trump
establishment.
defeated the establishment.
Trump
And same-
is the establishment.
And same
Truly,
goes for
truly,
MAGA,
yeah.
you idiot.
What?
Trump
what
and
is this?
MAGA.
And of
They're
course, Trump
they're
goes
the
on to-
definition of the establishment.
And also, I think I watched this video earlier. I think it was also brought up about the Iran-Israeli war, because this debate I think happened right after it started, and I think it was before America bombed Iran and such. Because remember, all Trump and their base and Trumpsters keep saying, Trump's anti-war, we're anti-war, and all that. The second the Iran-Israel war started, and the second America bombed Iran, they instantly flipped, as we all knew they would. Now they're pro-invading Iran and such. Why am I not surprised you're all full of shit as always? Just like you're all supported invading Canada, Mexico, Panama, and Greenland. Maybe you're lying imperialists.
They're support invading every country on the
argue
planet.
for tax cuts for the rich.
They think they're in age of history
is now
free.
Going,
Exactly.
supporting a war,
And
on
they're
behalf
bad at it,
of
unlike me.
AIPAC and defense contractors. Put Elon Musk in control of government cuts. Yes, the establishment was defeated. Okay, so how Cenk's argument comes off is that right-wing populists will put pressure on Trump to, in this case, cut the Pentagon budget, which of course
what
did not
pressure?
happen. But the most charitable read
There is no such thing.
is that, okay,
Yeah, really.
Cenk knew that wasn't going to happen, but in an appeal to Trump voters, he wants to put initial faith that it can happen, and then when it doesn't happen,
Hey, Cenk, we
point
tried
out the
that strategy
hypocrisy.
before. Look how that
Because
went.
we all know pointing out Trump's hypocrisy is
That's why we flipped.
a successful way
And for
to
some
defeat
reason, you
him.
decided to
pretty
flip for
much.
some whatever reason.
Pointing out hypocrisy is basically all we've all done. All media that is
For 10 years,
based
we
in
pointed out how
reality.
stupid and wrong Trump is. But his base does
That's
not
what
care.
He's wrong on pretty much everything. He's wrong at everything in the second term.
We
He
just
did like 3 good things on the first term, and that was it.
we just saw it just now with the Iran-Israeli war. They flipped on their anti-war crap on a dime because Trump all of a sudden
That's all we've done for the past 10 years is point out Trump's hypocrisy. We're talking like back to 2015. So this is not a new strategy. This is the old strategy that was not
that
working.
you supported
But
first.
Here is Cenk
And now you
defending
flipped on
himself
it.
here, and does he apologize?
So the tactic of let's work with them and try to cut the Pentagon budget failed. The tactic of let's resist this project outright and make the case and make Elon himself politically toxic succeeded.
So, Crystal, we do live in two different worlds. It's fascinating.
Yeah, she
to
lives in
see. It's
reality,
amazing
Cenk. How
to
about
see.
that?
So, number one, the project of saying
You're in
cut the
Delulu
Pentagon
is the
worked.
Solulu land.
Why did it work? Because they cut the Pentagon, it magically became progressives overnight? No. It
Oh
worked
God, that
because it
reminds
showed
me.
and highlighted-
My country's prime minister said that in Parliament not long before the election.
Oh,
highlighted their
jeez.
hypocrisy.
Just to show you that I was not straw manning Cenk's own argument. He thinks that highlighting Trump's hypocrisy is a successful strategy to win back Trump voters.
They don't care, Cenk. We've already
don't know
tried
what
that.
It's like he's living in a time vacuum.
They love
This is
the
straight from
hypocrisy.
2015.
They absolutely love the hypocrisy. That's all they live for.
The only people that care are already going to be against Trump. So what's the point?
These are Chuck Schumer level arguments here. It's amazing. So the Pentagon budget, of course, was not cut. Okay, sure, but Cenk is right because Trump voters have turned on Trump over the Pentagon budget.
Oh, wait, they didn't.
They didn't.
I must have missed that.
Just like with the Iran-Israeli war.
That's not what I've seen. But here we go. Cenk knows the MAGA base best. Crystal doesn't know MAGA at all.
Cenk. Kyle, Crystal is on freaking breaking point. She's on there with piece of shit fascist Sagar and the other idiots on there. She's surrounded by these idiots. And I think she knows better dealing with these people than you do.
Let's watch this clip.
You're not seeing it.
So you won because the Pentagon budget went up, even though you thought that the Pentagon budget would get cut.
Can I finish? Okay. So the reason you're not seeing it is because you're not engaging with MAGA, and that's okay. And you don't want to engage with MAGA.
Come on!
Do you know the show I host?
I don't know if you know who you are.
Why do you make us have to defend Crystal on breaking points now, Cenk? That's pretty sad.
Who are you talking to right now? I host a show with Sagar and Jetty and Emily Jasinski every day.
Okay, so Crystal,
no one in this room talks more to MAGA than I do, okay?
Yeah, okay. So are you saying that none of the MAGA voters were thrilled that they added to the Pentagon? Is that what you're saying?
They don't give a shit because Trump did it.
Crystal.
They don't care, Cenk.
Because they worship Donald Trump above everything else.
You don't talk enough to MAGA. It's so stupid. I think I would trust Crystal's opinion here and how MAGA feels over Cenk's thoughts based what appears to be largely on his interactions on Twitter, which not a lot of real people there anymore. I'm not sure if you noticed. It's a lot of trolls, a lot of bots.
I'll take Crystal's experience over yours, Cenk. Sorry.
Realistic worldview. But this gets to
she's around them so much that they make her sometimes say very stupid things which piss us off. That's how deep she's in it.
Next clip in a second here, which really gives you a good microcosm of what this entire debate was. But there are three strategies here that I see. So there's the Cenk strategy of reaching out to
which doesn't
Trump
work.
Voters by being kind to them and hoping that they're going to vote your way in the next election. There's Crystal and Kyle who are focusing on the here and now, what can be done with real movements, focusing on the
no idea if that'll work, but hey, I'm willing to try it
together. And then there's the Hassan Piker strategy of being in more apolitical spaces, working out, gaming.
I mean, that's stuff we do too, like playing games and such. Although, can we please find someone else other than Hassan, please? Can we actually have a good progressive doing that?
Internet beefs. Like, there's a whole other level that I think Hassan does well and fits into what Cenk should be doing. Like, if Cenk's focus is getting new people, like different people on board, the real focus should be on people who are apolitical, people that don't want to hear about politics.
Yeah, because the reality, Cenk, is that is by and large how Trump has won, like every time, because he somehow gets the apolitical people out. Beforehand, it was Democrats that did, like with Obama. He would get like the apolitical people out because Republicans were weirdos. Trump somehow, I don't know how, appeals to these people. So, and they did not work in 2020 because Trump was so bad. And I'm sure 2028 comes around. Whoever replaces Trump is going to have a major bad time, not only dealing with Trump's fuck-ups, but they're probably not going to be as charismatic as he is, so they're not going to do as well either with apolitical voters.
Every single day.
Pretty sure Couch Fucker is like the next in line. And that is if you guys have elections in 2028 or even 2026.
That fat fuck couch rapist has no charisma whatsoever.
I would say it's probably at least half of people. They don't want to be that engaged. But they're in other spaces. They're into sports. They're into video games. They're into other things. And that is, in a weird way, what TYT used to do. They had channels that focused on movies and television and culture.
Do you remember those days?
Topics, which is what helped to funnel people in.
I missed their sports channel when they did
the main show where they discussed largely politics.
Even if their NFL takes were kind of crappy.
This is why Cenk's arguments are so frustrating. What he's doing is so frustrating because they have or had a massive platform. They still have lots of subscribers on Facebook, YouTube, where they could be using that platform to really try and help to funnel people into this mass movement against Donald Trump. But instead, a lot of it are arguments designed
They're too busy trying to get conservatives, though.
That simply aren't even watching TYT.
Because they're grifters as conservatives now.
Let me get to the next clip here. This is just a hilarious moment where Cenk claims he's being strawmanned. Immediately following his own straw manning of Crystal and Kyle.
You guys just spoke for like 8 minutes doing a straw man. Okay, so you make it sound, and this is what's so harmful. You guys make it sound like I'm pro-Trump, and I think that MAGA is just a bunch of angels who are secretly left-wing, and they're going to magically agree with us on every issue. And the minute that Trump does something wrong, they're going to all push back 100%, and that's what I believe. I believe the rainbows.
They never have, and they never will.
That was so much of the debate.
I mean, you kind of give that impression,
Crystal and
Cenk.
Kyle are doing a straw man, and then doing his own straw man about what they're saying about his argument, which is not what they're saying. They didn't call Cenk pro-Trump. They don't think that he thinks that every MAGA person is secretly left-wing. Like, what are these arguments? That's not what's going on. But let me get to now the best moment of this debate, in my opinion. And this is when Kyle absolutely nails it.
Well, if the leader of the movement is a fascist, then the movement is a fascist movement,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, Cenk, we have mass kidnappings and abductions and human traffickings with no due process from ICE Gestapo thugs. They've raided schools, meatpacking facilities, farms, Home Depots, 7-Elevens, deported a 4-year-old with American citizen with cancer.
Will you shut up and let Kyle talk, Cenk?
That's a fact. If anybody who supports that, Cenk, is a fascist. They're a fascist. Say no due process, throw out the Constitution, that's fascism.
Okay,
Based,
so Kyle,
Kyle.
we agree that all those things are authoritarian in nature.
He's epic.
And that's why we all worked so hard to make sure that Trump didn't win, because we saw all of those authoritarian tendencies. But the way you just framed it attacks the voters, because you said MAGA, not Trump.
Why do I have to coddle their fucking feelings?
Why should
worship the fucking Trump? You idiots!
Why should we care about Trumpsters? They aren't going to change, Cenk. My God!
I like to win. And
you don't want to win, for crying out loud. We're trying to win, unlike you.
The problem,
less about
you
that.
keep reaching to the right, and then
You're
you miss the whole ocean to your
You're bought
left.
to lose, Cenk. You're bought to lose.
You're doing the strategy. We tried. It didn't work, and we decided to change our strategy. I don't know why you're changing since you were on the right side first.
And that's the
I
problem.
don't miss it.
Oh, you know why?
Why
Because
did
you're
you change
grifting.
the losing strategy, you brown buffalo?
We know the real reason why he changed, because he's grifting.
Anti-war coalition. What part am I missing? Like,
You're
am
an
I
idiot.
pro-war?
That's what
No,
you're missing.
I fucking hate this war, and I'm trying desperately to get us out of it.
Cenk.
Into the CIA.
Cenk, there have been polls since then, because like I said, this was like early on the Iran-Israeli war, which we're bringing up. Over 70%, up to I think 80%, depending on some polls, of Republicans and Trumpsters support bombing Iran. They are not anti-war.
And 80, something like 91% want World War III with China.
Hey, I'll do a. I'm trying not to do it, guys. All right, I'll do the wrong strategy that makes me feel better by yelling at their voters and drive them away. Oh, meanwhile, Palestinians
boo-hoo,
are getting
Cenk,
killed
they're not
every
going to
single
vote
day.
for you
Meanwhile,
no matter
they're
what.
Let's talk about that, Cenk.
because I yelled at
let's talk about that.
This is your old strategy. Cenk,
hey,
what I'm doing is your old strategy.
I'm so pure.
No, stop. What I'm doing is your old strategy, Cenk. I'm doing Team 19's old strategy. Why are you okay with the right playing by different rules, Cenk? Because the right, I saw this last election. A speaker at one of Trump's rallies at MSG came out and said the whole party of Democrats are degenerates, Jew haters, and low lives. Trump calls Democrats the enemy from within
Jew haters and low
says
lives.
we should use the military against them, and then he does use the military against them. He called us fascists and communists, and he's sitting in the fucking White House now. He was belligerent as belligerent can be, and he got to the White House. Why can't we be belligerent and have a little bit of swagger back and build a movement? If people want to come over from the right, that's great. They can come over from the right. But I'm trying to get liberals and leftists and independents and build a massive coalition of 60% of the country that way. Fuck them if they're signing on to all the fascist shit that's happening right now. Fuck them.
Okay. Oh my God, Kyle, you're so pure.
No, I'm a truth teller. I'm a truth teller. You'll play hide the ball. If they're actually fascists, you'll pretend like they're not fucking fascists. They are fascists.
Based, Kyle.
So Kyle, you've done such a good job at yelling at me.
By telling the truth. By telling the truth. By telling the truth.
Your brand is perfect, Kyle.
I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth, not coddling the nuts of MAGA voters.
Yeah, bullshit.
You're bullshit, Cenk.
Okay,
no, it's the truth.
Kyle.
What was wrong?
Listen to them. I told you they're
Kyle
heathen.
absolutely nails it here, and Cenk has no argument against what he is saying. I'm not even sure why Cenk is arguing against what Kyle is saying. That's clearly what Cenk is saying. he wants to be nice to Trump voters as a way to try and appeal to them. How is that not what that's what he himself has said he is doing. So, sure, Kyle puts it a different way, coddling the balls, but it's
and it's Griffin to know what he's even arguing.
It's the exact same thing. This
is
Kyle's point.
Grifting idiot.
Is exact. Trump won the election by being belligerent. The entire campaign was insane. Criticizing anyone slightly to the left of them as just completely, communist nuts. The entire campaign was like that, and Trump won with that campaign.
He won despite his campaign being horrendously bad.
Establishment aura that some people think Trump has.
Pretty much.
It's not because of policy. It's because he's belligerent. It's because he's offensive. It's because he's outspoken.
And that somehow convinces
some people view him as a different kind of politics, even though the actual underlying results are even worse than anyone before him. But it's the fact that Trump carries himself differently, which is what Kyle is trying to bring into the Democratic Party, into the left, by he himself being offensive, belligerent. If you see the kind of stuff that the kind of memes that Kyle posts online, some people
Kyle
aren't
is
happy
very
about
savage
some
on
of the stuff
Twitter.
He posts. But he doesn't care, because Kyle understands this ultimately
just like
is not
me,
going
I
to
don't
hurt.
care either. I will make fun of Trumpsters every damn day because it's so fun.
To be a little more insane, a little more
I'll
wild.
make fun of him being bad at Pokemon just like that.
Off. This is how you try and win some of those people back, because again, a lot of these people aren't focused on the issues, and if they are, they're already moved over.
Yeah, Cenk, people that don't like Trump, they're already not gonna vote for him, for crying out loud. The people that are voting for him are the people that like him already.
As he said there, if you're supporting what ICE is doing, then you're not winnable. If you know what ICE is doing and you're supporting that, you can't be one.
You're a Nazi, and you support the creation of America.
Likes Trump because of the vibes.
What they call alligator Alcatraz, but what it actually is America's Auschwitz.
Appears anti-establishment to you because he's offensive. Then Kyle can appeal to you by being belligerent himself, while also understanding the underlying issues and the politics of it all.
If you want to be Nazis, go over to Russia and China, pal. How about that?
Exactly.
Trump voters.
They love fascism and Nazism over there.
Worked and isn't going to work, because that's
not
all people have been doing.
Not just the Christian Nazis of Russia, but also the Islamic Nazis of Chechnya.
I bet Trumpsters would make good target practice for Ukrainians and Taiwanese.
In the past 10 years. All right.
And
I got a couple more clips, but they're not part of the debate, so I'm not even going to bother sharing them. I think you should go watch the full thing. It's just
they love Russia
one of the clips
and China
was
so
Crystal
much.
discussing how she, at one point, did what Cenk was doing, trying to appeal to the right on that show, The Hill Rising, and it was now Breaking Points. But she said how that didn't work, so she did the Cenk strategy. It didn't work. And Kyle brings up later on as well how this is what they have done in the past. They tried to appeal to the Trump voter by being a little more open.
Cenk, we tried that. It didn't work. That's why we decided to change views on it.
That's not what happened.
Which is why they're now being, in my opinion.
And then for some reason, you decided to change to our terrible strategy we tried before. It's really weird. But we know why you
I would say go watch it.
Well, we know why. It was grifting, and he was paid to do it, probably.
People understand Kyle cares about the issues. He understands the issues. And he also, at the same time, doesn't care how he may come off to some people, because he watched Trump win the election by being completely insane. There's no risk.
Y'all remember how stupid and brain dead he was in the campaign last year? He was such a moron, and he still won. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I told you got heated, and was I wrong?
Was heated.
So yeah, we got to see
I do fully agree. Kyle decimated Cenk and proved him to be the stupid grifting brown buffalo that he is.
He gave him the Cenk elbow.
Yes. Now he was the Kyle driver.
And Kyle, there was one thing missing though, Kyle. You were supposed to go, of course! So yeah, absolute destruction. Thank you, Kyle, for being base for once. Now, maybe if you kept your mouth shut on foreign policy, you'd be base all the time. So yeah, humiliation of Cenk. Maybe you should learn to not grift and push policies that we found out do not work anymore. But it surprises me. But we know how hard it is for you and Anna Kasparian to not be bad and all that.
Brainian.
Yeah. All right. So with that out of the way, on to the next topic.
How much progress have we made on climate change?
Ooh!
AKA, how much have we done to prevent a runaway greenhouse?
So, while I was looking up topics for 2 weeks ago's episode, I ran across Simon Clark in my feed again. And I decided to check his videos. And one of the videos was, how much progress have we made on climate change? And this was 4 months ago. I saw it, and I thought it was very interesting, so I figured, you know what? Let's cover it! And see what he has to say, since he's like one of the best YouTubers on this topic that we've seen.
Planet Earth is amazing. 510 million square kilometers under a blue sky. Granted, most of that is salt water, but the planet also hosts lush rainforests, scorching deserts, grasslands, tundra, mountains and plains, inhabited by a rich diversity of life. It is in fact the only place in the known universe capable of supporting life as we know it. But for the past 3 centuries, that blue sky has become increasingly choked with pollution. The level of invisible carbon dioxide gas has increased by more than 50% since the start of the Industrial Revolution. As carbon dioxide is very good at trapping heat, this has raised the average temperature of the planet by more than 1 degree Celsius. At the start of the 21st century, it was predicted that continuing carbon emissions would warm the planet by about 4 degrees by the year 2100.
Yeah, so here's where we first start off at. In this IPCC report back in 1990, it said by 2100, the planet's temperature would rise by 4 degrees Celsius by 2100, which is terrifying.
This would be
catastrophic. And remember that it piles on, that stays like that, only going down slowly through the decades. And that the Earth only needs to heat up by about 10 degrees C for it to be impossible for humans to live on. And 30 C would be pretty much enough to turn Earth into Venus.
Networks would collapse.
Which at
weather events like
40, which at the rate of 4 degrees a century, and then it's slowly going down over the next millennium, would put that 47 degrees C average temperature limit in real thing of being reached.
Become devastating. Life on Earth would enter into unprecedented territory. But preventing this future seemed impossible. Almost every human activity produced carbon dioxide, mostly because our energy was overwhelmingly supplied by burning fossil fuels, coal, oil and gas, to generate electricity, produce heat, and move ourselves around. But the Earth as we knew it was at stake. So people all around the world got to work. This video is about what they did and what a difference they've made. The single largest source of carbon emissions is the production of electricity and heat, representing almost 1/3 of all emissions.
And we have ways to resolve that somewhat.
Especially coal and gas have historically dominated power generation. But they're no longer the only options. Renewable sources like solar panels and wind turbines emit far less carbon per unit of power generated over their lifetimes. And globally, over 4,000 gigawatts of renewables capacity has been built, almost all since the year 2000. Over 30% of all electricity now comes from renewable sources.
30% of the world's global production of electricity is now green production. Let's go.
But that's the global average. In Uruguay, around 90%.
Unfortunately, a lot of heavy industry will never switch over to renewables because they're controlled 100% by fossil fuel industries who want to turn Earth into Venus.
But also hydropower. And last year, the country went for 10 straight months on a 100% clean grid. South Australia may also hit a 100% clean grid as soon as
your neck of the woods,
thanks to wind and solar.
Yeah.
And other places.
Yeah, if you didn't hear it said
We did. We spent most of summer getting off purely off solar.
Bang.
And we're still getting over half on solar even in winter. We're genuinely in batteries. Genuinely, South Australia may be one of only a handful of places across the planet that may actually reach our goals.
Yep. The only other place I could think of in America would be out the Southwest in the desert areas, pretty much.
Are not far behind. The North Sea might be the best place in the world for offshore wind, and the current rollout of wind power here enables the UK and Denmark to aim for a clean grid by 2030 and the Netherlands by 2035.
That seems quite ambitious for UK and the Netherlands in 5 years to have green energy 100%. That seems quite high, but hopefully that's
not
true.
going to happen.
India
The
aims
fossil
to power
fuel
10
industry
million households
has
with
captured the
rooftop
entire
solar,
planet,
adding
and that'll
500
never
gigawatts of
happen.
Capacity by 2030. But we can't discuss the rollout of renewables and not mention where most of them are being installed. China. China is building approximately twice as much new wind and solar as the rest of the world combined. It's still the world's largest emitter of carbon dioxide, though that's because of its huge population. The average person in China has a carbon footprint only 2/3 the size of the average Americans.
And that chart also showed
its
America's,
have
like,
been rising
age
sharply,
Americans,
but not for much
CO2
longer.
emissions
The
going down
huge
quite a
surge
lot
of
in
solar
a
and
few
wind
decades.
construction in 2024 kept overall Chinese emissions lower.
Nice.
Whereas
since
Whereas
2003
China's goes
for
up,
10 months of the
unfortunately.
year. And every
Yeah,
year,
it-
the amount of renewables...
It looks like it, from what I'm slightly going to push back on that. From what I've seen with China, their emissions for the last about 5 years have plateaued.
Yeah, I think he's going to bring it up in a moment.
Yeah, it's like up a little bit, down a little bit, but it's basically plateaued at this point.
Yeah, because remember his his 2024 recap, he said like emissions of like from like the previous year have like kind of almost flatlined.
Grid increases.
So it's not.
This emissions
So
reduction
thankfully, emissions are
almost
not going up as much as they used to be. Thankfully,
certainly isn't a one-off, but a systematic change. Many analysts predict that China's emissions due to coal, its other major source of electricity, will start to fall this year. And
Which
a
is
new phase
good.
of low carbon to run, nuclear power is being built in China and around the world, with over 70 gigawatts currently slowly under construction, and generation hitting an all-time high this year. China's new electricity system will see its overall emissions, a huge fraction of global emissions, peak in the next few years. It may feel like we have made no progress in the fight against climate change, but the power sector shows that is not the case. In fact, carbon emissions due to generating electricity likely already peaked 2 years ago, and will fall even under high forecasts for growth in demand, such as for AI. We're just building that many renewables and investing that much in grids and storage to overcome the intermittency of renewables. In Chile, the Oasis de Atacama project is being built, a 14.5 gigawatt hour battery, enough to power peak demand in the country on its own. But peaking electricity emissions is not the same as overall emissions peaking, because not everything runs on electricity. The next two largest sources of emissions are heating and transport.
Heavy industry and the military, which will never go green.
They're burning a fuel, often natural gas, in a boiler, and move themselves around by burning an oil-based product, like petrol, in an engine. This has long been the case, but in some parts of the world, alternative approaches are now more popular. And where they are more popular tells us something about the near future. Let's look at China and Norway. In Norway, most households are not heated by a boiler, but by a heat pump.
Hey,
Fridge
remember we
run
covered
in
heat pumps a
reverse,
long time
basically,
ago.
Powered by electricity. And
His video
last year,
too.
9
Aha.
out of 10 new vehicles bought in Norway were EVs, with the country set to phase out the sale of non-electric vehicles soon, maybe even this year. Meanwhile, in
Based
China,
if they do that.
most cars now sold are electric or hybrid. Uptake has just exploded in recent years. That's partly because China dominates the manufacture of EVs, but also because of what it has in common with Norway: cheap electricity. In Norway, it comes from hydropower. In China, from solar and wind. Where electricity is cheap, it just makes
would be nice
financial
if we
sense
did
to
that over
electrify
here instead of
heating
having
and
stupid Trump
transport.
and Republicans
In fact,
blocking us.
While on average around the world, a little over
Of course,
20%
because
of
they're the
all
one,
energy is
because
used
they're the
for-
ones that want to put they want to put as much carbon dioxide as possible into the atmosphere.
Because they're evil and bought off.
as electricity. In
Yep.
Norway, it's 47%.
They're bought by the fossil fuel
In Guangdong
industry
province,
who wants
it's
to turn Earth
49%,
into Venus.
And in Zhejiang province, it's 51%. As renewables, particularly solar, roll out across the world, the price of electricity will fall, making electrified systems, such as in transport and heating, but also industrial processes, much more appealing. As well as being more efficient, those systems are then tied to the carbon emissions of the electric grid, which, being based on renewables, will be low, much lower than running them on fossil fuels. These sectors will see their emissions start to tumble in coming years as electrification percentages rise. Of course, decarbonising transport is much more complicated than just replace cars with electric cars. You can watch my whole video about that. And this process can be accelerated with appropriate government policies. This has happened in China and Norway, but now elsewhere too. In East Africa, Ethiopia banned the import of internal combustion engine vehicles in 2024, encouraging the development of EV infrastructure. While in Kenya and Rwanda, policies are building charging stations and shifting both public transport and two-wheel mobility, like scooters, to electric vehicles, both to reduce emissions but also improve the poor air quality in cities. A win-win. The world has made huge progress reducing emissions from power generation and, to a lesser extent, heating and transport. At the start of the century, scientists predicted 4 degrees of warming, maybe more, by 2100. Now, based on current actions by our governments, we will most likely see between 2.2 and 3.4, with the best guess being 2.7 degrees.
Better, but still
warming.
not good.
Global emissions may have already peaked.
Yeah, but the thing is that we're already in
soon.
is that we've already hit 1.5. So we've
Emissions in
already
advanced economies
failed
are already back to their levels
in
from
that
50
regard.
years ago.
We've now just got to
That's
minimize.
huge.
We've just now got to
But
slow
obviously-
down the. It's now going to slow. So we know we're at least going to get to wind up with a repeat of the end Permian, which is really not good for humanity, because that would almost wipe us out completely, make the Earth
Still
completely
not
uninhabitable for
enough.
humans.
At 2.7 degrees,
And you're going to
we'll
take
still
into
see
account that the sun's a bit over 2% brighter than it was in the Permian, which means it's going to be even worse. Yeah, like at the start of the century, there was a real possibility of triggering a runaway greenhouse like Venus. Thankfully, it looks like we're going to avoid that, but we've just got to do everything possible to ensure that the Earth just remains habitable for humans.
Yep.
Even if there's like a colony of 20,000 of us in Greenland and 100,000 of us in Antarctica.
Yep, and of course he'll keep covering more as we keep going on.
Agriculture and public health. Every 1/10 of a degree of warming extra makes the world a more unstable, dangerous place. But that 2.7 degrees is based on real-world government policies, what we're actually doing now. It doesn't account for increasing our ambitions or recent innovations becoming practical at scale. If government's announced 2030 targets are reached, along with any legally binding longer-term targets, we're likely looking at 2.1 degrees by the year 2100. Yes, that's still too high, but every 1/10 of a degree makes
I mean,
a
if
difference.
we got that, that would be half off what
Areas
originally was
where
going to
we've only
be.
just started to see
So
real alternatives to
1/10 of a degree now is 1 degree at the end of this.
status quo. Practical ways to reduce emissions in the coming decades. We haven't, for example, talked about iron and steel, long labelled as
Which is
hard to
very
decarbonise
difficult to
because of
work
the
with.
huge
Oh,
energy
yeah.
required
That's
to
very
make
difficult.
iron
Yeah, we're trying to
supplied
do
by burning
green steel.
Which he's going to cover in a bit.
coal. The industry represents around 7% of all emissions. But in recent years, alternatives to coal have become economical and supported by government policy, such as using green hydrogen and using electric furnaces, which can of course be powered by clean sources, producing green steel. Globally, 43% of planned new steel furnaces are electric, and China, which produces half the world's steel, now only approves new electric furnaces that process scrap metal. Cement is another industry with a large carbon footprint.
Yep, another thing
only
it's very
slightly
difficult to
less than
decarbonize.
steel, due to its energy-intense production, but also the fundamental chemical reaction that produces cement, releasing CO2. Some are pushing the industry to change the recipe for cement, but as it's the second most traded commodity in the world, only second to water, that's a tall order.
How can you even change the recipe for cement?
To rely on carbon capture units being retrofitted to existing cement plants. And these already exist. They are currently being slowly implemented. I actually made a video visiting one of them. With the right policy support, both steel and cement have potential to slash their emissions, over 10% of global emissions, in the coming decades. We've also not yet mentioned work on the other side of the carbon equation. By protecting natural carbon sinks, like forests, we not only suck more CO2 out of the air, but also reduce emissions of carbon through deforestation, and, of course, protect biodiversity. And since the year 2000, carbon emissions due to land use change, about half of which is due to deforestation, have reduced by 30%. In the Amazon, deforestation has halved in the past 2 years.
Thank you, Lula!
All around the world, small local projects seek to restore lost tree cover, plant new mangroves, and protect land from development. There are also enormous projects like 1 billion trees in New Zealand and the Great Green Wall of Africa, though these have many problems of their own. Deforestation is still occurring at far too fast a rate, but slowing it in the tropics has been a quiet, small victory for the past few decades that looks set to continue. And in temperate regions, we've actually been net gaining forest cover since the year 2000. Clearly, it can be done. Working with, rather than against, natural systems will play a key role in our trajectory this century. But you may have noticed something about this video. An area of the world where no large projects have been mentioned.
Of course.
What about America? Here, emissions have decreased by 20% since the year 2000. But earlier this year, the US elected Donald Trump back into the White House.
Thank you, my fellow Americans, for being retarded for doing that. Appreciate it.
Priority, that environmental protections will be rolled back, and that the country will leave the Paris Agreement again. This is obviously going to have negative impacts on emissions, both in America and around the world. Confidence in climate progress has been shaken. Many seem to believe that his re-election has killed the clean energy transition, slamming the door on our future. This is not true. For one thing, America represents around 1/8 of global carbon emissions. That means that while American emissions may plateau for the next few years, I personally think a big increase is unlikely, they represent a small minority. And as we have seen, other large emitters like China and Europe are making ambitious plays to reduce their emissions. But more importantly, do you know where else is investing huge amounts into renewables that we haven't mentioned yet either? The Middle East. In fact, the Middle East is the fastest growing renewables market outside of China. Countries like Oman, the UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia are developing huge solar projects. Just last month, the UAE announced the world's
It's the only way that 3 of those countries can survive.
Yep.
A battery facility, even larger than the Oasis de Atacama, coming online in the next 2 years. These countries are built on oil and gas, and they're now ploughing money into renewables because they recognize it as the future. Globally, twice as much was invested last year in clean energy technologies and grid upgrades as was invested in fossil fuels. The fact is, the energy transition isn't happening because it's the environmentally right thing to do. It now just makes economic sense. Solar, and to a lesser extent wind,
So, hey, that means
are now
capitalism
so
can
cheap,
help
they are
somewhat.
preferable to burning fossil fuels in many cases, making electric systems
But it can't be
cost-competitive.
all
It's
capitalism,
for this reason
conservatives.
that heat pumps will continue to outsell
That's
gas
where you go
boilers
wrong in the other
US.
direction.
Individual states will continue rolling out renewable power generation and investing in geothermal power. The US has the real potential to lead the world here, and after all, it does involve drilling, baby. Drilling. One person, even if they are the most
We can't
powerful
lead
person
until
in
that
the world,
idiot orangutan's
is not
gone.
going to derail the transition to clean energy and, by extension, massively reduced carbon emissions. That transition is now inevitable and happening at pace around the world. The question is, just how quickly will it happen? Will
Not
it be
quick enough.
fast enough? Will we get to net
Nowhere
zero
near quick
fast
enough.
enough?
Well,
We've already
definitely
got
not
expected to go down
because
from
definitely not because we're already at 1.5 degrees, so we're already too late.
to 2.7 degrees. If we follow through on our medium-term targets, we can get that down to 2.1. If we are ambitious and push for net zero and utilize all the strategies in this video and more besides, we can still limit warming to less than 2 degrees.
Yeah, that's very optimistic, though.
Increasing climate impact.
And still very bad.
Ever increasing ambition.
Yeah.
On climate. We need
but
this
that
to
would be
continue.
over half off of what originally was going to be from
matters.
4 degrees
But as the
beforehand.
re-election of Trump shows, we cannot take it for granted.
4 would have been
that
like
progress will
nearly
continue
would have been
to
35,
accelerate.
40
I don't
degrees,
want you to come away from this video thinking
would
we've
have
done enough
which could have
on climate
easily
change. We are moving
tipped
fast
Earth
enough,
into a
because
runaway
sadly that's
greenhouse.
Still not the case. The great adventure of
Because I also remember that Earth only has about a billion or so, a bit over a billion years of habitability left.
Yep.
Before it goes through a runaway, at least a moist greenhouse, runaway evaporation of the Earth's oceans.
Yeah, for all of you who don't know, in a billion years, the sun's going to become 10% brighter, so it's going to make it too hot on Earth. It's going to, 1, evaporate the oceans, and it'll actually lower the carbon in the atmosphere to the point where photosynthesis can't happen. So Earth for a couple billion...
That'll happen in about 800 million years, and then Earth's surface temperature will get to, in about a little over 1 billion years, will get to about average temperature, where we're at 15 at the moment.
Yeah.
The average surface temperature will hit 47 degrees, and that's where and that's when you'll start seeing the runaway evaporation of the Earth's oceans.
Yep.
That could only could happen in as little as less than a million years.
Yep. Earth will eventually become like Mars somewhat, and then a few billion years after that, a runaway greenhouse effect will happen when it becomes hot enough that all the carbon in the rocks will be forced out, and then we'll definitely become Venus.
If we do not keep
considering that Earth has a lot more water and other things in its rocks and all that, and under the water, under the ground and that, it would actually be more extreme.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course...
when the sun just starts its red giant phase, just before Earth loses its atmosphere, Earth's surface temperature is going to be higher than the red dwarf star TRAPPIST-1.
Yep, and then, of course, we gotta also worry about in the future, 5 billion years from now, when the hydrogen in the sun goes away.
Yep.
And then the next 2 billion years after that, the red giant phase.
It's about 5.4 billion years when the hydrogen, when enough helium sets up in the core that the sun runs low on hydrogen. Go into the subgiant phase, it'll last about 1 billion years, 1.5 billion years.
It's like a 3 billion year process or so.
Yeah. Oh, it's very long. And then, but then the jump in size from twice its current size to 256
times
orbit.
It's going to reach Earth's orbit.
That will take 10 million years.
Mm-hmm.
That'll only take 10 million years.
And then its final phase will take like a million years.
A billion years as the Earth slowly spirals in.
Yep. So Earth could be destroyed in the future. So we need to keep our planet safe for as long as we can until we're able to move out.
In who we vote to lead us, who we choose to work for.
And we need
which means not vote for Trump.
Most importantly,
be able to move to other
it's
stars.
Not an adventure we need
because
to start. It's an adventure.
Unfortunately, Mars isn't a great place to.
Mars will only be like temporary because it's going to be in a bad place when the red giant phase happens.
Ready-made, great start.
The funny thing is that if you want a world that's worlds that are potentially habitable in the red giant phase,
you had to go like
look at the moons of Saturn and Uranus, particularly in Titan.
They might. Oh, about Titan, there's actually an astronomist YouTuber I watch. Maybe I should take a look at. That says Titan's actually moving away from Saturn. Is that true?
Probably very, 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 very slowly.
Well, of course.
And
eventually, Titan is going to get so far away from Saturn that it could actually cause Saturn to go on its side like Uranus.
No. The thing is that Uranus, in order for. Now, the Titan is nowhere near massive enough to stabilize Saturn's rotation like that.
Maybe I'll go look.
You need something about the size of our moon versus Earth for that to happen.
Maybe I'll go look that up in a moment.
And so, it'll eventually get to a point like with Pluto and Chiron, where they're showing the same side to each other.
Sure, we need to continue.
That's going to be like
see through
10 plus billion years from now.
Maybe you can be a part of this great story, keeping our Earth amazing. I built this 1 to 100 million scale.
So yeah, that is it for his video. So what do you guys see about Simon Clark's video, how much progress we made on climate change? Wasn't it very interesting?
We have made progress, but it's not bloody anywhere near enough.
Yep, we need to keep it going. But hey, like we said originally, a few decades ago, it was going to be like 4 degrees warming. Now we got maybe down to 2.7. And if we kept going all the way, very ambitious, we could probably get under 2 degrees, which would be a massive improvement. We just got to keep pushing all we can and don't give up, fellow.
Yep.
Every progressive.
Fight as hard as possible.
Yep. Never give up no matter how bad looks. You got to keep fighting no matter what. Because that's what the climate skeptics want you to do. Just give up on it. You can't ever do that.
The skeptics have been convinced. Only the paid deniers remain.
Yep. So never give
Only
up.
the ignorant or the ones that are paid denialists.
All right. So now on to the next topic.
And that is, how evil is the meat industry?
And I also found that video I was telling you about, which I'm going to post to you in a moment. But anyways, you remember that German channel we covered before about like how safe is meat and all that?
Yep.
Well, they had a video a few months ago that showed what happens to the animals before we slaughter them to eat their meat and all that. And it's absolutely horrifying.
Oh, I'm kind of aware of it
Yep. What we do.
Yeah, this is where like tight regulation will go a long way.
Yep. What we do to animals is absolutely evil and all that. And this video covers how bad it covers how bad their life is, and if we are willing to pay more for meat and all that, we can make their lives much more better before we genocide them. And it's pretty saddening, people. So, and it needs to be covered. So let's go watch this now.
This is not an anti-meat video. We've all heard the arguments against meat, and yet in the EU and US, only between 1 and 6% of people don't eat it. Meat is just too tasty, convenient, and ingrained in our culture for most of us to consider giving it up. Also, food is personal, and nobody likes to be morally lectured. At the same time, we love animals. Most of us have pets and believe in animal rights. Few things make the internet as angry as animal cruelty. Both are true. We love meat and we love animals. Unfortunately, most animals we eat live in truly horrible conditions. We don't torture them for fun, but because it makes meat just a little bit more incredibly cheap. If we all paid just a tad more, we could avoid most animal suffering, often just for a few pennies per meal. Disclaimer: farming is complicated. Many farmers are genuinely trying to give their animals the best life possible, but they're trapped in a complex system with extreme market pressure to keep prices low. No two countries have the same standards, no two farms are equal, and solid data is often scarce. We've done our best to combine data from different regions and the prices you pay in the end. To keep things simple, we're going to classify farming practices into 3 broad groups: decent, prisons, and torture camps. This is a bit sketchy, and you've probably seen many more categories in the supermarket, like organic or grass-fed. We'll come to that later. So, fellow omnivores, what would it cost us to avoid animal torture and still have our fried chicken? Chickens. At any given time, there are about 26 billion chickens alive on Earth, as many as all other birds combined.
And we slaughter hundreds of millions of them every single day.
Chickens seem dumb, but they're social, can communicate, solve problems, and feel empathy.
Torchic down there!
And yet, we keep the vast majority in insane torture. Let's start with eggs. Worldwide, about 90% of laying hens live in torture camps, crammed in extremely tight cages where they can barely move. They're unable to show any natural chicken behavior like nesting, roosting, foraging, or pecking at the ground, so they become extremely frustrated and end up hurting each other badly. To stop this, many farms clip their beaks. In the US and Europe, legal bans and consumer initiatives have improved the situation a lot in the last few years.
Thank God.
But still, more than 50% of hens remain in cages. The insane thing is that this doesn't even save a lot of money. Let's say a dozen eggs costs you around €360 or dollars, 30 cents per egg. How much does it cost to free the hens? The main alternative to cages are barn systems. Hens are still kept indoors, but have twice as much space and roam freely. Barns are prisons. Still not amazing, but so much better. In the EU, barns increased the consumer price by about 2 cents per egg.
Oh, boo-hoo, 2 cents to make chicken's lives just a little bit less torturous, people. So evil.
The somewhat decent alternative is free range, where hens are allowed outdoors, often with proper access to vegetation. In the EU, this increases the price by about 7 cents per egg.
Again, does that sound so bad? 7 extra cents to make chickens' lives a little bit better? And you do know, because I don't know if they're going to cover or not, but I'm pretty sure animals that aren't like stressed out a lot would probably make meat better too, and maybe more safe to eat. Because stress does very bad things to your body, and that includes animals too.
Exactly.
Housing aside, one of the cruelest practices is chick culling.
Oh, geez,
Male chicks don't lay eggs, so they're killed right after birth, usually by gassing or grinding. This is a really widespread practice used for caged, barn, and even organic eggs. 7 billion baby chickens are killed this way each year. France and Germany have banned this, so many breeding eggs here are scanned early and only female birds hatch, which may have increased costs by only 2 to 5 cents per egg. So if you pay 85 cents more for a dozen eggs, you can make a difference between serious chicken torture and pretty decent chicken lives. And for another 60 cents, you can help end chick culling too. Chicken meat is a different story. Most meat chickens today are genetic freaks, bred to reach amazing weights incredibly fast. Their internal organs are under a huge amount of stress, and they can't even walk properly because of their weight, which causes them a lot of pain for much of their lives. It's hard to give exact numbers here, but if farmers were to switch to breeds that grow slower and suffer far less, a serving of chicken breast that you buy at $1.50 would become 9 cents more expensive in the US. 90% of meat chickens in the EU live in prisons or torture camps. They're kept indoors in extremely crowded conditions, with sometimes dozens of birds per square meter, often in the dark and with poor ventilation. So what if we moved them all to prisons? One EU study found that giving them 30% more space, perches, fresh air and daylight would increase the price by another 13 cents per serving. Probably less than 5% of meat chickens live free range in relatively decent conditions. This meat is actually noticeably more expensive, double the price of regular chicken. But chicken is the cheapest meat, so depending on the cut, you'd pay 35 cents to €1 or $1 more for a serving of chicken that had a decent life.
Oh, boo-hoo, people, am I right? $1 more, and that chicken lives a better life. Don't you think that's worth it? Because I sure do.
Pigs. Pigs are basically dogs. They're as intelligent, social, and playful as our wolf buddies and make lovable pets. So pigs really feel how they live and arguably have it the worst of all animals we eat.
Oh boy, here we go.
Probably more than 90% of all pigs live in torture camps. They spend their entire lives indoors in extremely crowded spaces on concrete floors without straw or bedding. Since this is far from what they need, they get frustrated and often fight. Piglets have their tails docked to stop tail biting. Most males are castrated after birth so that their meat will taste better, often without pain relief to save time. Mothers are kept in crates, extremely tight metal straitjackets where they can't move at all. This leads to extreme suffering for the mother and for the piglets, which are held in a barren area separated by metal bars and taken away at just 3 weeks old. Imagine treating dogs like that.
Imagine treating any animal like that.
Let's get to the prison level. Getting rid of crates would raise the cost of a €2 serving of pork by about 20 cents. Anesthesia for castration costs almost nothing, around 1 cent per kilogram of meat. And a study in Denmark found that giving pigs more straw and bedding material and 30% more space and other things that are more animal-friendly would increase the price per serving by another 20 cents. This is still an awful life for an animal this intelligent, but obviously much better. For 40 cents more per serving. Going one level further and giving pigs outdoor access for at least 40% of their lives and 300 to 400% more space indoors would increase the price per serving by another 80 cents. Just over 1% of pigs in the EU live in these or similar conditions. We can't know if this is really okay for such a smart and social animal, but it starts resembling something decent. And all for about $1.2 or euros more per serving of pig.
How about that? Make pigs' lives much better for just $1.20 more. My God, people, isn't that so hard to ask?
Cows.
Unfortunately, there's a lot who say that is too much. I'm a stupid boo-boo head.
And they don't care about animals' lives.
Meat have it the best because they usually spend about 2/3 of their lives outdoors, making their lives pretty good. If they were in the wild, it'd be basically the same thing, but less safe. Their lives are far from perfect though, especially at the end. The vast majority of cows spend the last months of their short lives in finishing feedlots, either prisons or torture camps, where they're fattened to reach their slaughter weight as fast as possible. Probably less than 5% of beef cattle in the US have lifelong access to outdoor pasture. And yet, a recent German study found that it only increases the price of beef by around 15%. The life quality of cows varies widely even within countries and regions, depending on the available land, climate and farming traditions. So it's really impossible to make more easy and cheap suggestions to make their lives better. Dairy cows do have it much worse. They're often kept indoors for most of the year and suffer pain, sole ulcers and lesions from standing on concrete. But once again, none of these things seem to be needed to have affordable milk. In Germany, outdoor pasture increases the price of the milk by about 10 cents per litre. We could go on with many other animals and farming practices, but the summary is clear. For the animals we eat the most, upgrading their living conditions from outright torture to somewhat decent may cost you about 15% more for beef and milk, 50% for eggs and pork, and 100% for chicken meat. The meat of the issue. Opinion part. Meat has gotten so cheap that we have to torture animals to keep the prices insanely low. This really is all there is to it. Food in developed countries is the cheapest it's been in history. In the US, the largest meat consumer in the world, an average person spends $337 a month on food, $88 on meat, eggs and dairy. If these became an average 50% more expensive, that would increase the monthly expenditure on food by about $43. This may sound like a lot, but relative to income, this only means paying as much for food as US consumers did in 1987. In Germany, the average person spends about 70 euros a month on meat, eggs and dairy. If we increased prices by 50% on average to make the lives of these animals better in a really meaningful way, this would rise by about 35 euros to about 100 euros. If this still sounds too expensive, it may be because around 20% of all meat people buy is simply thrown away. Meat got so cheap that we often don't eat it before it goes bad. It's no longer valuable. Okay, so if you go shopping, what can you do? It can feel like you can't do anything as an individual consumer, but this is not true. The market follows demand. So if you don't want to buy torture meat, look at the labels on holding conditions. If there is none, it is torture meat for sure. If there is, well, it's complicated. It's often unclear what different labels mean, if they're strictly enforced or legally binding. Some are great, others whitewashing. And we haven't talked about the most expensive meat so far, organic meat. You've probably noticed that many price estimates we've given here don't quite match your experience in the supermarket. This is in part because some retailers consider ethical products luxury goods and charge an even higher price, and also because many labels like organic, natural, ecological, bio, or the worst of all, biodynamic, often contain a lot of extras or pseudoscience that have nothing to do with animal welfare. Many, but not all of these labels include some of the best practices mentioned before, but not necessarily all. Organic brands often include, for a lack of a better word, stupid measures, like forbidding GMO feed. As we covered in another video, banning GMOs doesn't do anything good for you or the animals. It just makes your food more expensive and seem more natural, while you are consuming unnatural animal breeds, living a deeply unnatural life. Unfortunately, the label situation in many countries is extremely confusing.
GMO skeptics are going to be raging about that
All
one.
too often, we don't know what we're really buying. So, grudgingly,
people are against GMOs, remember?
if you can afford it and want at least a high chance of torture-free meat, go for the label. If you can afford it, buy organic. If you can afford it and have time, research local farms and get your meat from a place you've seen yourself. There's one exception, too good not to mention: mussels. They suck up carbon and filter water, making coastlines cleaner. Calling mussels dumb is giving them too much credit. With no central nervous system and probably no thoughts or pain, they're basically moss. Really, everyone should eat more mussels. Okay, let's wrap up. You don't need to be vegan to think the current situation is unacceptable. The conditions of most animals we eat are hard to stomach and could all be avoided if we paid as much for meat as our parents did. Things are slowly getting better, at least
exactly. And a lot of, honestly,
push
the massive, like, I hate to say it, what we need to do is build up a thing in an alternate industry of it, and then destroy the old one with the with the mass murder of and honest, to be brutally honest, the mass murder of people who engaged in these practices.
Lab-grown meat, please hurry up.
Industry in the right direction if we bite the bullet and pay more. If you can't afford this, maybe eat a bit less meat. Don't throw meat away. Maybe avoid the worst torture
Maybe
meat
don't
like
even
pork,
eat meat
at
entirely.
least
How about that
sometimes.
one?
And push for legislation that bans the most horrific
Ones
practices.
that,
we can help
like,
make
for
the
example, I
lives
can't eat hot dogs. My stomach can't handle it, and pork has to be prepared has to be slow cooked for me to be able to have it. So there are certain bits I can't do. Certain meats I just can't have because of my stomach.
And of course, there's only me who only eats certain meats because none of them taste good, like chicken or burgers once in a while, or pepperoni.
Billions of animals
and
dramatically
also, hello,
better.
Mill Tank.
It really is that simple.
Turn you into steaks.
Along with the Toros.
You can only advocate for better policies if you have enough reliable information. When
Alright, so that is it for that video. So yeah, what do you guys say about their video? About how ethical meat is?
Yeah. The problem is not eating meat, it's the industry that's been built around it, and that we also eat too much of the wrong type.
Yeah.
We should be eating we should be mainly eating fish.
Like when they covered it as meat safe for you. Yep, remember that's what when we watched Is Meat Healthy, that was the thing they covered first, fish.
Yep.
But yeah, people, there's nothing wrong with this. We need to make lives for animals much better. And if it costs more, so what? I want animals to have good lives. Because animals are just as valuable and important as we are. Like, come on, people. Like, seriously. Absolutely unacceptable. And we must get rid of this Holocaust as soon as possible. All right,
yes.
So now with that out of the way, what next?
Terrible. Well, the passing of the Destroy America policy.
Build Back Better has passed, unfortunately, on 4th of July, ironically, of all freaking days, of course. Of course, I was too busy with the World Files and all that. But, of course, it passed, and it was an absolutely terrible, evil bill and all that. So, of course, now we're going to watch Kyle covering it, because, God, this sucks so much.
Alright guys, I got some major breaking news here for you. So Trump's big beautiful bill, or as we call it, his big bullshit bill, just passed the House. That means it's going to the president's desk, it'll be signed, it'll become law. There's no other way to say this except what they just did is the ultimate betrayal of the American people.
As Trumpsters always do.
Betrayal of misery.
Because that's their job.
Because you're all
to betray
evil
and mass murder the American people.
You just want death.
They're building literally America's Auschwitz. So
absolutely legendary. So, just to let you know what this bill does, first of all, it adds about $4 trillion to the deficit and the debt. Of course,
so much for fiscal conservatism. How about that? All the increased deficits and debt that you all complain about.
Crux of it is to cut taxes for the wealthy and raise taxes.
By the way, did you see the video I posted?
Class. The bill cuts
I've
Medicaid to the tune of $800 billion.
I haven't watched it yet.
Which effectively
check
takes
out afterwards.
over 16 million people off of health care. It raises out-of-pocket costs. It reduces coverage for poor and disabled people. That's right, disabled.
He even did a video on Earth in a Billion Years that we just talked about earlier.
People are going to lose their lifeline as a direct result of this bill. Of course, 3 million people were kicked off of the SNAP program, which is the food stamp program. It cuts free school lunch for kids. They actually end up kicking millions of people off of Obamacare subsidies as well. A lot of people don't know this, but the bill ultimately ends up cutting Medicare too, because it violates PAYGO, and as a direct result of that, it leads to a sequester in Medicare, which basically means it's a fancy way of saying there's going to be automatic reductions in Medicare. The bill also kills wind projects and solar projects, so all the job creation that was going to happen around that is now done and over with. It allows for increased pollution. It increases oil and gas drilling on public lands. It defunds Planned Parenthood. It blocks Medicaid trans healthcare, massively increases funding for the ICE Gestapo. They're currently rounding up innocent people.
If you support any of these people, you're just evil.
In El Salvador.
That's
and
the end of
sending
it.
them to
You're
Guantanamo
just
Bay,
evil.
And sending them to Alligator Alcatraz.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
In reality, we're talking about Alligator Auschwitz. It also increases energy prices in every single state, and it even repeals a tax on gun silencers. So this is, I mean, honestly, we're at the point where this is comical. This is comical. Even the parts of the bill that, in theory, were supposed to help working class people, it's a giant ruse. So as AOC points out, Mike Lawler, this is one of the Republicans who voted for the bill, voted to make the tax breaks on billionaires permanent while making the no tax on tips only for people making under $25,000 a year, and it expires in 3 years. So at the same time they do that, they're also kicking these same people off of Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, and clawing back their SNAP. So it's really a sleight of hand trick. You do no tax on tips in a very limited, narrow set of circumstances.
And may I also add,
you
like,
get more
under
than that
20%
back
of
by
Americans
effectively
supported
raising
this in the
taxes on
first place
people,
as well.
Cutting their food stamps, cutting their Medicaid, cutting their
So, of
Affordable
course,
Care
doing
Act
policies
subsidies.
that Americans don't
So
support.
it's all a scam. Like, it was all a scam.
Yep,
It's all a
exactly.
trick. At the end of the day, this is a colossal, colossal disaster for working class people. That's what it is. Now, by the way, we are getting some absolutely incredible reporting about what went on in this past week. So Notice reports the following, that Trump was, out there trying to rally support for this bill and talking to Republicans in the House, and he seemingly had no idea what was in the bill.
Because he's a retard.
But Trump still doesn't seem to have a firm grasp about what his
And he's
signature
brain dead like
legislative
Biden.
achievement does. According to three sources with direct knowledge of the comments, the president told Republicans at this meeting that there are 3 things Congress shouldn't touch if they want to win elections.
Actually, I will make one correction. The big thing that won't kill most life on Earth will be the loss of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It'll be the loss of oxygen.
Security. Quote, but we're touching Medicaid in this bill, one member responded to Trump, according to 3 sources. So he's rallying support for this bill and whipping votes for this bill, and while he's whipping votes for it, he goes, definitely don't cut Medicaid, definitely don't cut Medicare, and that's literally what they're doing. That's literally what they're doing, and even people in the
Because
room
Trump
are like,
is full
hey,
of
dog,
shit.
that's what we're doing. He doesn't know what's in the bill.
That's all his fans
This
and
is
all
all
the
vibes. He
entire
just wants
MAGA
some-
movement is.
Look at you, Cenk.
A
Yep.
big theoretical win, right? He's going to hold some signing event on like July 4th and act like this is a massive win. Meanwhile, he literally doesn't have a clue what's in it.
Because
No
he's
idea.
a brain dead retard like
all right, I got
Biden.
another one for you. So, there
Exactly.
was
He's
a bunch
dead.
of
He's
Republican
dead,
congresspeople
and
went to
he's
meet
dead
with
and
Trump
being puppeted by
at
the dark
the
side
White
of the
House.
Force.
And basically, Trump was able to flip them and get their support for the bill. How? By giving them signed merchandise. He had some MAGA hats and signed his
How
name
much of a
and handed it
fucking
over to them,
moron
and
do
they
you
were
have
like
to
giddy little
be to
schoolgirls,
convince
and they
them
were like,
to vote for
"Okay,
Trump
vote for the
because
bill
of
now."
that? Really?
There's even one quote,
Merchandise?
right? Mr. Trump told
Then
him,
again,
one of the Republicans
conservatives
pulled
are
out,
pathetic. I'm not
he could go to the pro
surprised.
shop and pick out a shirt.
What a bunch of losers
What?
you idiots are that are watching this.
What? So, signed hats, go to the pro shop and pick out a golf shirt. And by the way, some of these Republicans, when they left the meeting with Trump, they were recording like TikTok videos and Instagram videos and shit, and they were like giggling and so happy, like, oh, this was so incredible, the president's so amazing, we love him so much. All it took was one meeting with Trump schmoozing these assholes, and they go, sure, kick 17 million people off of Medicaid and destroy their fucking lives. So, by the way, understand, people are truly not grasping the gravity of what just happened. Now, I should point out, most of the worst cuts kick in 2028. So that was a devious, evil, genius Republican plan to say, hey, let's put the worst parts of this bill, let's push it off to 2028 so that if a Democrat wins, you blame them when the shit hits the fan. That's the purpose of that. But
That's pretty much what they want.
Just how tragic this is, and just how much people's lives will be utterly ruined as a result of this. If you want mass protests, if you want mass riots, if you want violence in the streets, if you want people considering Second Amendment options,
there we go.
If you want basically a completely and utterly politically and economically unstable country, we got it. As bad as it was before, with record income and wealth inequality, this eclipses by far what we were living in previously. Because what we're doing is taking the meager, minor social safety net support that we have and taking a sledgehammer to it and destroying it. At the same time, you're giving colossal amounts of money to the billionaires. I mean, it literally is cut healthcare for poor people and disabled people.
Not already ejected from the Saturnian
take that
system.
money and put it directly in the...
Are you watching the video while we're watching this? Are you serious?
No, I'm just reading Timeline of the Far Future while listening, and I just saw that mentioned at 7.59 billion years from now.
Because guess what else? His video about Earth a billion years from now.
Pockets of billionaires and corporations. That's
also remember, another interesting fact, that in about 1.5 billion years, the outermost of the Galilean moons, Callisto, will be captured into that resonance.
Which means?
For every orbit every orbit Callisto makes, Ganymede makes 2, Europa makes 4, and Io makes 8.
Absolute catastrophe. And I'll leave you here with Gavin Newsom said the following: 17 million people just lost healthcare, 18 million kids just lost school meals, 3 million Americans just lost food assistance, and 3.5 trillion was added to the deficit, all for a tax cut for Trump's billionaire donors. The ultimate betrayal. Understand something, guys.
Imagine making Gavin Newsom look good all of a sudden, Trump. How sad are you?
They'll try. They'll bullshit. They'll lie their ass off. They'll pretend like it's a giant win. There will be no hiding from the pain, the devastation, and the consequences that this bill brings, and the massive backlash that you're going to see as a result of it. This is a 5-alarm fire moment. We've truly crossed the Rubicon, and I mean, I'm speechless when I think of the widespread devastation that's about to happen to this country now, because these assholes wanted to impose their evil, sadistic agenda on the American people, all at the behest of their billionaire donors.
Exactly. Yep, pretty much.
Absolutely evil, not. So yeah, what do you guys say about build bullshit back Trump's bullshit plan and all that? That got passed, of course.
Terrific.
And of course, any of you support this, you're just evil. It's not debatable. This is a terrible bill. Yep. End of discussion. You're just wrong to support it. End of discussion. And that's it. You just accept it. So yeah, terrible and all that. So now, on to the next topic.
And that is young men abandoning Trump.
Oh, took you long enough, traitorous Gen Z young men. So, of course, Kyle covered a poll recently. Now, young men, Gen Z men, the people that a lot of them went for Trump because they're a bunch of fucking morons, are now turning on him.
Yep, because they were listening to Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes and want to abuse women.
Yep, and Trump encourages that because he's a pathetic loser. So, yeah, let's finally watch some good news for once, but we're still not going to be happy if you dipshit Gen Z men that vote for Trump. That was stupid of you.
So there's one particular demographic, y'all, that is not too hot on Trump at the moment. So as you all know, he had a very concerted effort to do basically outreach to young men. That's why he did the whole podcast strategy where he went, he did podcasts with the Rogan Sphere. He went on Theo Von. He went on Andrew Schultz. He went, of course, on Joe Rogan's show. J.D. Vance also was on Tim Dillon's show and Theo Von's show. And this was a very concerted effort by the Republicans to try to tap in to, you know, a new pool of voters, particularly disaffected young men. And look, it paid off in the same way that in the election, Trump increased his numbers with some immigrant communities.
Yeah, because you're all a bunch of ignorant
his
fucks.
Numbers with young voters.
Of course
Trump
they are.
lies about that number and says he won it by whatever. 20.
Like, it's not debatable. When you hear Trump, he's retarded. He's never once said anything that's coherent once. You should automatically be against it because he can't even talk right, for God's sake.
20, 30 points.
Unless you're retarded as well.
Going against literally everything that the beta males you watch.
Like,
the beta males you watch preach against. But of course, since they're grifting hypocrites, that means that they love everything that happens that their God Emperor does. Because they're demons.
Remember how brain dead Biden sounds for like the last several years? That's how Trump sounds to me. They're literally no different.
Mm-hmm. But in order for Democrats to win,
how do you remember they
both died a couple of years ago, and their bodies are being animated by the dark side of the Force.
Like, they're both brain dead and retarded. We could see it, but you can't because you're idiots yourselves.
Huge percentage of young voters. And Kamala just didn't. I believe she won it by like 6 points or something like that, young voters. But a lot of young men ended up voting for Trump. Now, that particular support for Trump, I think it's fair to categorize as soft Trump support. And the reason I say that is these are not day one ride or dies for Trump, right? This is not the 26% to 33% of the country that makes up that hardcore cult base. This was young people, might not follow politics very closely, might like, you know, Theo Vaughn or Andrew Schultz or Joe Rogan, and they see this guy on there. Oh, he doesn't seem so scary. Oh, it seems like maybe he'll help me. I guess I'll vote for him. Right?
You're an idiot if you think that.
Well, guess what? It's been, what, 6 months that he's in office? And look at the results. So Daily Beast has an article. Young men who elected Trump just realized they screwed up. Quote, they are turning
maybe you should have thought about that beforehand.
Harvard director of polling tells the Daily Beast. The young men who helped get Donald Trump back in the White House are now realizing they made a massive mistake, according to a Harvard polling expert.
That isn't underestimating how much of a terrible mistake you made.
Director of polling at the Harvard Kennedy School Institute.
And you wonder why you can't get pussy either. Shit like this is why.
Politics told Joanna Coles
because
on Tuesday's
it's
episode of the Daily
because
Beast
women
podcast.
want to murder you instead of...
No, it's Republicans that want to murder you.
Quote, they are turning against him, referring specifically to young men between age 18 and 29 years old. Quote,
and they love murder.
Are concerned that Donald Trump is doing more harm to them than good. Okay, that's essentially what the report card looks like. He told the Beast's chief content officer during the 2024 election, Trump won narrow margins in key battle states after making an outreach to disaffected young men using right-wing influencers, anti-woke rhetoric to secure their votes. Quote, I believe younger people were responsible for putting Donald Trump in office to start with, specifically younger men. However, he also suggested that these voters feel they have seen no return on the campaign promises made by Trump regarding the economy and other domestic concerns.
Yeah, because you never were, because Trump's a fucking moron.
Quote, younger people are quickly asking important questions like, I thought this was going to improve my economic standing. What about me?
Yeah, it never was.
Said Della Volpe, who advised Joe Biden during his 2020 election campaign and worked with a PAC that tried to rally support for Kamala Harris in 2024. The economy has gyrated wildly under Trump, and his Liberation Day tariffs in April has seen the cost of imports to the U.S. surge, with the price being kicked down to the consumer. So, of course, the tariffs were an absolute catastrophe, and now you have countries fleeing the dollar at 1,000 miles an hour. You see the rise of China. You see the decline of America. You see manufacturing jobs here going away even faster than they were previously. You see widespread economic pain. But then on top of that, you also see massive cuts to the social safety net, which is absolutely crucial at a time when we have income and wealth inequality that's off the charts. And so these young voters are going, what the hell did I get out of this? Cole said that she was amazed that this group didn't draw conclusions from Trump's first term from 2017 to 2021. Della Volpe said that the 18 to 24-year-old subsection of the younger voter group only saw Trump as president during the beginning of the pandemic and therefore couldn't make a fully informed call on his abilities or lack thereof.
How could you not see it? Do you remember COVID, people, how badly he fucked it up? I sure remember that. Hell, I remember stuff Bush did, for God's sake, and that was getting near 20 years ago. How do you not remember stuff that I can remember just like that? It's not hard. You're just ignorant if you don't pay attention to stuff. No, that's unacceptable if you did not know how bad Trump was in the first term. That is unacceptable. You know better, and you're just lying to yourself. He was horrible. End of discussion.
Quote, people in their later 20s and early 30s who do have that memory of Trump 1 were more likely to support Democrats, right? So
yeah,
what
like me.
they're concerned about is honestly the same thing
pretty
all of us
much.
are concerned about. It is asking for, demanding some stability in their lives, specifically related to economics and finances. It's really all about that. But I do think that younger people just, they have a different lens. By the way, so one of the polls I saw on this, now Trump's approval rating in that particular demographic is down to 32%. He has polls for the country as low as 38.
Should have been that way from the very start, so he would have not won.
32 among young people.
Yeah, I remember polls like right after like Trump won on like Gen Z men. He had like a over 55% approval or something like that. What the fuck is wrong with you people?
Yeah.
You're all stupid.
Specifically, were drawn to Trump's macho persona. They were looking for Donald Trump as someone who wasn't defending the institutions, but someone who could use his strength to advocate for people who were economically anxious.
He wasn't going to do anything. You are all stupid if you bought his crap. He's a beta male. You saw how much of a fucking lying piece of shit he was? How Kamala destroyed him in debates and all that? He's a pathetic loser. Even more of a bigger loser than Kazi and Rent-A-Girlfriend.
It was really about the strength of his persona, I think, different than some specific policies. That was what was attractive.
Have you ever read Rent-A-Girlfriend?
No.
Oh, man. You want to know how sad of a loser Kazi is?
How sad.
Oh, there's one scene. The basic premise is Kazuya, who's the male protagonist in the series, is after this girl who is like a rent-a-girlfriend, if you know what that means. Kind of like soft implication of prostitution. And they like each other, but they're like too stubborn to like admit and such, yada yada yada. But there's one chapter. There's one chapter that was so hilarious, but everyone absolutely hated. And if you look up hating on Rent-A-Girlfriend, you'll see it. The one chapter, Kazuya is fantasizing about this girl he's after getting fucked in every single position possible for like 8 chapters straight as he passes out in the pool with an erection, getting off it thinking about it because he's such a cock. Isn't that funny or what?
Specifically around younger men. And this is, look.
Oh, that was so hilarious thinking about that again.
It's true. A lot of the Trump support,
doesn't that sound like Trump?
Demographic as well, it was totally vibes-based.
Like it.
Yeah, exactly. You're all fucking idiots. Don't ever go on vibes, people. Go on objective facts. Trump sucks, therefore you don't vote for him ever. It's not that hard.
Trump goes on Rogan and lies the entire time, but he's charismatic.
Exactly.
Like, whatever Trump says, he lies. You just instantly dismiss it. He lied over 30,000 times the first term alone. He's a piece of shit. You never support him. End of discussion.
And he's arrogant and
he's
certain about stuff.
He's a retard.
That these young people looked at.
Pretty much.
He seems strong. Seems like a strong leader.
He's a loser. He's the exact opposite strength.
The biggest loser there is.
He's a beta male loser that should be laughed and made fun of because he has a tiny dick too.
Exactly.
They say that after 6 turbulent months in the hot seat, young people are clearly overwhelmingly dissatisfied. His approval rating among younger people are in the 30s. A report from Delavol's team in late April found that more than 4 in 10 young Americans under 30 say they're barely getting by financially. Fewer than 1/3 approved of President
Trump. Like we
Trump.
told you I would if he won, which is why you should have just voted for Kamala like I was forced to.
Reality always catches up eventually, and the reality is what? He's destroying the social safety net. At the same time, he's waging a trade war on the entire world, including our allies. Factory jobs are leaving. The economy is
and here's some things you gotta have to realize. Sometimes the establishment is just right. End of discussion, and you have to suck up and deal with it.
It's very rare. It's very rare.
Any soft supporters you have are going to go, well, this isn't working, right? The true cultists will stay, but the soft support is going to be gonzo. They're done. It's over. All right, so just to put the little cherry on top here, and this is something I've been saying for a long time, what young men need to realize, I mean, everybody needs to realize this, but especially young men need to realize this. These people hate you, bro.
Yeah, Republicans hate you. They want you dead, like we told you for years.
I'm not just saying that. It's actually true.
They are evil. Don't ever support conservatism. It's an evil ideology.
In that
it belongs
what does it
in the
do?
trash
It
bin
massively
like
cuts
Nazism.
Medicaid, $800 billion cut to Medicaid. That's stripping
Liberalism
away from low-income people and disabled people.
That too.
There's plenty of young people in this country getting Medicaid, right? Listen to what they say about literally young men in particular. Ready? This is Steve Scalise, Republican.
We're actually cutting spending in this bill, getting rid of a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse, putting work
there is none, you
requirements,
retard.
for example, in a program like Medicaid, so that the truly disabled and needy will be able to get better access to Medicaid, because those able-bodied adults who are turning down work, the 35-year-old who's sitting at his mom's basement playing video games, is going to have to go get a job again. Those are going to be
try and get a job for several months like I have and nowhere hired.
Waste, fraud, and abuse, and saves hundreds of billions of dollars in those programs.
That's what they think of you. The 35-year-old sitting in their mom's
All of you that
basement
play
playing
video games, they just
you're the
hate
problem.
you.
You're a parasite. You don't deserve
they love the
You
hate.
don't deserve it.
And that's why you need to hate them and crush
By the way,
them. But
it
that
is
means
rich.
you
How
have
many
to
days
vote
a
for
year
Democrats.
Do senators and Congress people
And
work?
that's the end of it.
It's barely fucking anything, and they make a six-figure salary. They're the lazy ones, and they're only representing billionaires. They're donors, and they have the nerve.
And you have to
lecture
be
young
progressive.
people in a tough
There's
economy.
no debate.
This idea that the right has that like anybody who doesn't have a job is just lazy, motherfucker. Everybody wants a job. Everybody tries to get by.
I've been trying for like almost 6 months now, and nothing yet. Doesn't help when you live in a resort town that only gets jobs in the summer and then they lay you off in October.
Everybody tries to pay the bill. Everybody does their best.
That's not fun.
Right? But sometimes there are macroeconomic factors that screw people over. Are you going to
Like also Trump being a piece of shit and sucking so bad that a lot of places don't want to hire because they're afraid he's going to fuck everything up too much and fuck them over.
tell me that in 2008, when we
Pretty
had the
much.
subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession and the economy tanked and unemployment
Every time
skyrocketed
Republicans
to
get in
over
power, the
10%,
economy tanks.
that,
When
we're
Democrats
doing
get in
it
power, the
back
economy
overnight.
improves.
A much larger
That's been a
percentage
fact
of
for
the
30
population
plus
got
years
it.
now.
Exactly what happened.
No,
which is
those
really
were
good.
Macroeconomic factors which screwed over regular people. They try to judge like
When we tell
they
you Republicans
genuinely
fail
view your
on
worth
literally everything,
by
they
the size of your
do.
wallet. That's how they look at you.
That's why you
They
never
view
support
you
him
as
ever.
a person
Violate L
by
plus
the size
ratio.
of your wallet. So
If
you're
you want to
struggling,
succeed
you're
in
gonna
life,
get
you
by,
have to be
you're not
on the
doing great.
left.
It's not because
End
of
discussion.
other factors,
Exactly.
economic factors, environmental factors, cultural factors. There's no outside influences. It's all you. You're just a bad person. You're just a bad, lazy person. Well, by that logic, 60% of the country is living paycheck to paycheck. Are they all lazy? Are they all bad?
To Republicans?
people?
Yes,
they
you
all
are.
trying
Because
hard
they don't
enough?
exist.
No, you
Yeah,
assholes
because
rig the
they want
economy.
to put them
As you
all
give
into
more
gas
tax breaks to
chambers.
billionaires and screw over working people and strip their health care away from them, then you have the nerve to lecture them in the meantime and say, oh, you're in your mom's basement playing video games, bro? You're the problem. You don't deserve
Also,
healthcare.
what basement?
It's incredible. Every other developed country says, oh, obviously, if we're going to be decent, moral human beings, healthcare is a right. It is not a privilege. If you're fucking spleen
There's a lot that
explodes
need to be
and you're trying to go
that are.
Would you like to beat this into the head of Yankees and how based you're all down there when it comes to healthcare?
Exactly. Yep. We actually pay for it. We actually have a good good pay into our
Medicare
system,
for
and it's
all, like
actually
Bernie
really
wanted
good.
people.
Yep. Pretty much.
Hospital, should they go, well, hold on now. Do you have money? What's your job? What's your profession before I save you from death? This is how they think. This is how they think. Fuck you if you don't make a lot of money. We don't like you. That's how they think. By the way, to add more for you, here's another Republican asshole commentator on CNN. Listen to what he says.
On the Medicaid piece, though, there's obviously going to be a big debate about this. I mean, there are like almost 5 million able-bodied people on Medicaid who simply choose not to work. They spend 6 hours a day socializing and watching television.
Yeah,
and
you're
if you
full
can't
of
get
shit.
off grandma's couch
One
and
of
work,
us
I don't want to pay
can't.
for it.
I don't know
A
where
lot
you're
of people
getting
physically cannot work.
I wouldn't be surprised this fucker probably thinks people that actually try to look for work like me are one of those lazy people who, funny enough, don't even watch TV other than the NFL.
CBO says there are 5 million Americans who are sitting on their couch watching television.
Regardless, this kicked 17
that you just cited.
This kicked 17 million people off of.
False.
That 17
And
million
so
people
the
off of.
numbers that we have,
Well, give me the numbers that you
just
all
so
have.
that we're all
we
on the same page.
Level set it from the
Let's
same
level
place.
set. And the numbers that we have, the Senate version, 11.8 million people left uninsured by 2034. The House version is 10.9 million. So the Senate version is a little bit more aggressive.
So, in other words, as they strip 17 million people of health care, they lecture those people about being bad people.
When you're all the bad people, actually.
They're projecting because they're evil.
They do the bad thing. They sentence an extra
They wish they could.
50,000 Americans to death every single
They
year.
wish they could be as base as Ayaka, but fail every time.
Them about
Pretty
you're
much.
bad people. You're shitty people. No, you guys are. You guys are. Because in a civilized country, healthcare is off the table.
How about you explain living in a civilized country, unlike me and my fellow Americans, how it's done?
Have a government that actually gives some care to its people.
And rub it in our faces.
Right? It's like we've come to this conclusion for so many other things in society, right? The fire department, that's a government entity. If somebody's house catches fire, nobody stands outside and looks at it and says, did they pay for the fire people to come? Maybe we shouldn't put their fire out because maybe they didn't pay the fire department yet. Nobody blames it. Maybe you deserve to have your house caught on fire. Nobody does that. Everybody understands, yeah, a firefighter is a public good. It is a public necessity. If your house catches fire, they got to put it out. They have a vested interest in doing that because you don't want the neighbor's house to catch fire either, right? Well, healthcare is the fucking same. It's the same. Imagine looking at a kid going to elementary school and going, do you have enough money to come here? What's your parents' job? Maybe you shouldn't be coming here. Maybe you don't fit. Nobody does that because we realize schooling is a public good. In a civilized society, we have public schools, right? It's the same for healthcare. They don't think about it like that. They think, I'll call you lazy.
Yep, exactly.
I'll call you parasite.
They don't dare because they want to because they're paid to want to kill as many people as possible.
And then I'll justify and rationalize taking the healthcare away from you. So maybe you can't afford your medicine, and maybe you can't get that surgery that you need. And you know what? You're on your own. I don't care. Screw you. All to grab that money and put it in the pocket of billionaires. Quite literally. The Medicaid cuts and the SNAP food stamp cuts in this bill directly pay for more money to the top 1%. That is class
When instead
warfare.
they need to be taxed
That's
to
what
almost
that is.
oblivion.
And
How
they
about that
arrogantly
one?
argue for it on national TV by saying these people are stripping healthcare from, they're just lazy. They're just bad people.
They need to be kicked down the
This is how they
street and
think of the
starve
world.
and die
Guys,
while we live
how many
in
times have I said
luxury.
this? They
How about
invert
that
the
one?
They invert the
Exactly.
narrative. So in other words, who's oppressing you? It's that the trans guy that lives down the street who never bothered anybody.
That's what they
goes about their
believe.
business. That trans guy's
And trans rights are human rights. You're going to get over it.
He's oppressing you.
Exactly.
The guy who does backbreaking work
You're
all
going to have
day
to
in
just
90
get
degrees
over
sun,
it and deal with it.
and takes care of his
If
family.
trans women want to
and,
play
you know,
women's
comes home at
sports,
night,
you just get over
he's
it.
oppressing
Like that. Try more.
The poor person who's
Some more.
getting healthcare through Medicaid, they're oppressing you. They flip everything. So in other words, don't look at the corporations. Don't look at the billionaires.
Maybe it
Don't
should
look
be
at the
like
fascists
space
who are
Christians
locking
like
up innocent
Ayaka.
people in concentration camps in the Everglades. Don't look at them. They're not the
But
problem.
we know they
They're
want
the
to call
good
her
guys.
slurs.
The bad guys. It's the trans kid. It's the immigrant.
And then she'd
It's the
slur
person
them
who's
as
on
well.
Medicaid. So the people with no money,
To just tell them
and
to
no
go
power,
fuck themselves
and no
and
widespread
hope they
base of
get
support,
smited by
they're the cause of
Jesus.
all of your problems. It is offensively stupid. Offensively. No, the area you look at is where they have the power and where they have the money and where they have the control. And that is this asshole and all of his Republican colleagues. So to reiterate the main point here, they hate you. If you're a young man and you supported MAGA, you supported the Republicans, they hate you.
And you're an
They hate
idiot.
you. They don't like you.
Exactly.
They wanted to take your vote and then say, thank you, now watch us give more money to billionaires. And that's what they did. And that's what they did. So, what did you learn? I think you know now. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe.
So
It
yeah,
helps out
what do
big
you
time.
guys say about that video? About Gen Z men apparently now finally realizing, hey, Trump actually sucks ass. Maybe we should have realized that earlier. Oh, wait. Fucking moron.
Time.
Like, here's the
About
reality.
fucking time. Now you got to start undoing. Now you got to start learning to undo the ingrained existential every negativist in the book that you have.
Like, we've been telling you this for years, people. Trump and Republicans too. They suck. End of discussion. They are bad. They lie. They are evil. Don't ever
Ontologically
support them.
evil.
They are bad. And if you fall for the crap, then you're just an idiot. It's very crystal clear how bad they are. It's not that hard. You are willingly being ignorant on purpose, I feel. Like, it's so obvious you don't support them. It's just, what they support is just flat out not debatable. You need to be against it instantly. And also, Trump's a retard. He's never once said anything coherent in his life. Get it for your head.
Exactly.
Alright, now with that away, on to the final topic.
Conservatives and corporate Dems cope. Mauled seas dilate over the victory of Moldani. And they want, and how they want to murder him or deport him or both.
Finally, something very funny recently. So recently, New York City had a primary for who could be the next mayor in November. And of course, the Democratic primary had a base progressive running, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he ran against... Yep. And he ran against piece of shit Andrew Cuomo, which, fuck you Democrats for letting him be in the running. He's a sexual predator. Do you all remember that? Do you all remember him?
Yes, we do.
You do all remember that he was such a sexual predator years ago that he had to resign as New York's governor. Do you all forget that? Because I sure remember that because we covered it because it was that bad. And then you all just casually voted for him to be the next Democratic mayor. I don't want to ever hear from any of you ever again crying about Trump being a predator when you support a predator like Andrew Cuomo. Fuck any of you that voted for him. End of discussion. It's just wrong. But thankfully, he lost. Moldani won. Yay! And since he's the Democratic nominee, it's going to probably almost guarantee him being the next mayor of New York. Now, of course, we can't say fully guarantee. Although Eric Adams, the current mayor of New York, sucks ass and his approval rating in the city is terrible, so he probably won't win. But everyone, Republicans and corporate Democrats, are going to probably do everything they can.
Coming together. If they can't beat him, they're going to try and get him murdered.
Yep. Both Republicans and corporate Democrats are trying everything they can to try and stop him. Be it lying and smearing about him. And right now there is technically, because Adams, the current mayor of New York, is an independent. Moldani, of course, the Democratic nominee. There's also a Republican nominee run in New York for the mayor as well. I would be surprised if Adams and that Republican candidate actually decided to drop out and just join forces to try and stop Moldani as much as possible. Like, there's going to be some sort of collusion in that regard. Now, will it be enough? Who knows? Because Moldani is a Democrat, so in New York City, that's going to be very difficult for him to not win. So hopefully he can hold on still no matter what. Because that would be so based if he won. So many amazing policies he would do. And also, for the first time in a while, Democrats actually had a huge win in that regard, and they got young progressive voters out, which they haven't done in a long time. See what happens when you're progressive? You actually win and all that. So hopefully he wins and all that. So yeah, now this video actually doesn't probably quite cover that, but I wanted to bring up really quickly to get to the next main thing, and that Democrats want change. Like a Tea Party revolution level change, and kick out all the corporate Democrats as Kyle's about to cover now. So let's go watch this.
Alright, y'all, welcome to the show.
Of course, Kyle, with your long-ass intros. 2 fucking minutes.
Kyle,
seriously.
This says it all
2 minutes.
About how weak the Democratic establishment is at this moment. Watch this from Harry Enton. This breakdown by the numbers when it comes to Zoran's win is astonishing. Let's watch.
And he's talking about the Democrat that won the Democratic nomination in the New York mayor election that we were just talking about.
Let me tell you, this was a political earthquake that should have the Democratic establishment running scared. What are we talking about here? Well, New York City primary upsets like Mondani's. This is truly one for the record books. There are really only 2 that I could think of that are anything like this, and that's back in '89 for mayor when David Dinkins won over 3rd-term mayor Ed Koch. Koch was running for a 4th term. The voters said, there was big turnout then, just like there was big turnout last night.
And also, New York City, why do you not have term limits, for God's sake, for your mayors? Like, come on. Seriously, get that shit fixed.
And of course, more recently, if you want to take a look at a national picture, think back to 2018, New York's 14th Democratic primary going for Congress when AOC beat House Dem Caucus Chair Joe Crowley. This, to me, is very much like that. Energizing young voters, energizing voters on the left, and providing what truly was a historic night last night in Democratic
when you actually
circles.
give us a progressive, we win. So maybe you should actually support progressives people instead of corporate Dems.
And look, on paper,
or
this is
sexual
the mayor's
predators
race.
like
This is also New York
Cuomo.
City, special city. But is this more a New York City thing, or is this more of a sign of
like that is so bad? If I was in New York City, I would vote for Modani, of course, but I would honestly might vote for him not because of his policies, but just to keep Cuomo out because I don't want a sexual predator as in office.
Of a larger national trend when it comes to
Exactly.
the
Yeah, just like AOC's victory in 2018, this did happen locally, but I think you can take it up nationally. What are we talking about
Like,
here?
seriously, what the fuck, Dems? Why'd you do that?
Democratic establishment, you think about Democratic Party leaders.
Because they're evil and paid to lose.
Mm-hmm. So anyways, this poll, Democrats who think their party leaders should be replaced. 62% said yes.
But the bottom line is the Democratic
And
base
no
is set up.
corporate
It's done with the
Democrats
Democratic
because they're
establishment. This is true in New York.
demons
It's
as
true
well.
nationally. Democrats who
And
say
they
their
love
party leaders should be
fascism.
replaced. Look at
only 24% of Democratic voters support the current party leadership. 24%. That's unheard of. To put that in perspective for you, in 2017, during Trump's first term, that number was like 60 or 70% that supported current Democratic leadership. We've never seen anything like this before.
This is a recent poll from Reuters Ipsos. 62% of Democrats nationally say their party leaders should be replaced. Party leaders like Andrew Cuomo, party leaders like Jim Clyburn, who, of course, endorsed Andrew Cuomo. You think about all the Democrats that were behind Andrew Cuomo in the establishment. The Democratic base is fed up with them. And the bottom line is nationally, the vast majority of Democrats think that their party leaders should be replaced. But it's more than this, right? Of course, Mondani ran a pretty far left campaign, right, compared to what we normally see in Democratic circles. But the bottom line is, you talked to me 20, 30 years ago, there was no way I thought a Democratic socialist could win a nomination for mayor in New York or nationally. But look, Democrats who identify as liberal nationally, in 1994 is 25%. You go to 2004, 33%. 2014, 43%. Now the majority of Democrats nationally identify as liberal.
How the fuck do you not identify as a liberal at the bare minimum in the Democratic Party? Like, seriously, that's like that's liberalism is like the default like centrist like right-wing views of Democrats, for God's sake. Like, at the bare minimum, everyone should be identified as a liberal. Like, come on.
Oh, this person is very liberal. What they're trying to say is that person is a leftist. They don't have the same sort
Liberals
of,
and leftists are not the same thing, people. They're not.
In, more in New
Different. And
they're very
and
different.
liberals would rather team up with fascists, Nazis, and ISIS fighters than lefties. And lefties, and a lot of lefties would rather team up with literal communists than liberals.
Horseshoe theory in action, people.
Yep.
Hell, even progressives and leftists aren't even necessarily the same. We're progressives. We hate leftists by and large.
Media and more with, political
or at least
junkies
I
who
do, because most of my experience are really
sleep and
stupid.
read this stuff 24/7. When they say, "Oh, this
looking at
candidate
you
is very
specifically,
liberal,"
Hassan,
that's them saying the person's a Democratic socialist or the person's a leftist, right? And so that's how a lot of people interpret it with the polling too. Is that in 1994, only 25% of Democrats calling themselves liberal. That is the third wayification of Democratic politics. That's the Bill Clintonification of Democratic politics. We're going to split the difference. We're going to be above the fray Democrats. We're going to triangulate. We're going to be new Democrats, which means we're half Republican. So back then, that's where even the base was. Now, the base is moving further and further and further and further left because he just said, I can't believe a Democratic Socialist won. Well, yeah, but think about what led to that. What led to that was the Republicans going full fascist, and then to counter that, Democratic voters are going further and further to the left because they see how insane Trump's fascism is. So
because you Republicans are fucking morons in our eyes.
The best sense of the word.
They're evil
don't compromise,
and demons.
Don't negotiate. Don't do bipartisanship. You just have to defeat these people and fight for a totally different political program.
I want the complete destruction of conservatism.
War. Talk about working class
solidarity. I'm gonna be brutally honest.
Talk about
there's probably not long. We're probably getting to the point where violence against them might be necessary.
And that'll be their fault
1% versus the 99%. Talk about billionaires being the problem, the corruption being the problem, right? This is the default perspective of the Democratic base when that didn't used to be the case.
You go to 2004, 33%, 2014, 43%. Now the majority of Democrats nationally identify as liberal.
Again, why is it not 100%? That should be the bare minimum for Democrats. Like, for God's sake, come on.
To you, it very much may not be.
Ooh, so they're saying, you think this is a one-off with Mamdani winning? And look, to be fair, in some ways, in Trump's first term,
when he had like the midterms in 2018, it was a bit of a one-off. Like, I was a co-founder of Justice Democrats with a bunch of others, and we wanted to do what was effectively a left-wing Tea Party of the Democratic establishment. But clearly the party wasn't ready for it yet. The voters were not ready for it yet. And what we're seeing is, now they are. So you had AOC.
You should have been ready from the very start when Bernie ran 2016.
Exactly.
Very simple.
You know, it was our wins were more limited than one might think, right? Like maybe it was 7, 8, 9 different Justice Democrats end up getting in there.
And unfortunately, one of them, Bowman's gone. Oh, and Bush too, so it's 2 less.
This might happen all across the country. Left-wing challengers to establishment Democrats might end up toppling these people.
Hey, AOC, remember, I still think you should, instead of run for president, you should run for Senate to get rid of Schumer in 2028. Definitely think you should run for Senate instead of president.
People all around the country.
Yeah.
See a lot of eyeballs.
Kicking out Schumer would be so amazing.
Because now he's just got to match up with an independent incumbent in Mayor Eric Adams. So.
I'm very much looking forward to this matchup. Could be another one for the books.
More numbers for you to dig into.
Okay, so he's not done. He also does one more here. Ready? Watch.
What should they take away is that the party leaders, Democrats who say they want to replace their party leaders, look at this, 62% nationally say yes compared to just 24% who say no. That lines up with the idea that Democrats view their own members of Congress, their own leaders in Congress, record low approval rating. Democrats right now are out for...
Like Republicans keep spewing this poll about, like Democrats only have like 20-something% approval and all that. Now, of course, they say it's because they're too left-wing on it. No, we hate them because they're not progressive enough and they don't fight to crush Trump.
Blood. They want to take out their party leaders, and you saw that with Andrew Cuomo going, adios amigos, goodbye, see you later in New York this past Tuesday.
I love that quote. He says, Democrats are out for blood. The Democratic base is going...
Oh, yeah. That's another thing I just thought of just now that being mentioned. All you remember all the idiot corporate Democrats, like when Bernie lost, they always advocate, vote blue no matter what. We have to vote for Dems to keep Trump out and all that. Well, guess what? Now tables are turned.
Now you all better vote for Madani in the New York election. You understand me?
Hey, vote blue no matter what. You don't want Republicans or Eric Adams to win, do you? Because we would vote for blue no matter what. Oh, now all of a sudden they flip, and now they're against voting for him. Oh, so now you know how we feel about voting for you guys. So at least we're consistent on it. You guys are not. So how about that, stupid retards?
We're done. Clearly you can hear that thunder. Well, I guess I
know that feeling, Kyle.
I'm doing the show. I definitely couldn't be golfing today, that's for sure. So we're doing the show. But Democrats are out for blood, meaning the leaders are not safe, the establishment is not safe. If you're not hammering home the notes that Democrats want to hear,
I want your guys' destruction as much as I want Republicans' destruction. We talked about this
yesterday, but only 21% of Democratic voters
and I will
now have a
6-0 you in Pokemon.
21%. That's a historic low. That means the base is
we'll just have Shuckle just make you 2D.
No. I'll use Heavy Slam without using Iron Ball, remember?
And they're going, that's bad, that's wrong, we need to stop
I at least know how to use Heavy Slam, unlike Barry Retard.
Right? They're done with bipartisanship and negotiation and compromise and holding hands and singing Kumbaya. They want crusaders and fighters. We're going to take no bullshit.
I want their destruction. What part do you not understand? I want Republicans to be so politically irrelevant they can't do literally anything, and they just permanently give up. That's what I want. I want them to all be shut up forever.
Like, we finally have our moment. We finally have
a lot of them, and a lot of them could die as well.
Think about it like this. When we have the next Democratic primary in 2028, they're not going to be able to hold back the wave of left-wing
I don't know
energy.
about that, Kyle. We saw what's happened before with Bernie. We can't be too so sure about that yet. But we absolutely must fight hard as possible to make sure Progressive gets the nomination.
The DNC are the second greatest riggers in the history of the world.
Yep, so don't be too confident yet, Kyle.
When it came to 2016, they were able to do it by, at the last minute, dropping out and rallying around Biden in 2020 to defeat Bernie because it looked like Bernie was going to win. They don't have the pull anymore. They don't have the sway anymore. They don't have the trust anymore.
Well, they didn't have the trust and sway then, but they still did it.
Explicitly, if corporate media,
so that's why I said you should be very hesitant.
We want this candidate. We want Alyssa Slotkin. That will be a strike against that candidate and make them less likely to win. So be ready, y'all. Be ready. The moment's here, and it's only getting stronger. Hey, y'all, do me.
So yeah, we gotta see about that video about Democrats wanting the destruction of corporate Dems in the party.
Yeah, well, we need to. We need to get rid of them. And then when we've finally sorted out and got our progressive utopia, what we want, all the corporate Democrats and all the Republicans needs to be rounded up
and form their own party,
and then just made irrelevant.
But yeah, so the main things too. Good on Mondani winning, and every single person on the left in New York, you better vote for him no matter what. Vote blue no matter what, people.
Mondani.
You better vote blue no matter what. By your own logic, not our logic. And also, no compromise. Corporate Democrats and Republicans, you must all be crushed. You all must be politically irrelevant, and the country only run by us-based progressives. End of discussion.
Exactly.
So yeah, there we go. We finally got through all the topics. So we'll see you all next time on our hopefully normal day of Friday. And we'll see you all for episode 133.